History is written by the victors, but sometimes the most terrifying figures are the ones who never sought a crown. Today, we're uncovering the story of a warrior whose name sent shivers down the spines of not one, not two, but three mighty empires. He never ruled a kingdom, yet kings and emperors paid him tribute. His tactics rewrote the rules of warfare, yet you probably won't find his name in your history textbook. This is the story of the man they called the Scourge of Empires, and the mystery of why he vanished from history. Our story begins in the tumultuous 5th century, a time when the world was a chessboard for giants. The Western Roman Empire was crumbling, the Eastern Roman Empire, or Byzantium, was flexing its muscles, and the mighty Sasanian Empire of Persia dominated the East. These three superpowers were in a constant, brutal dance of diplomacy and war, but they were all about to face a new, unforeseen threat, a storm gathering on the vast, unforgiving steppes of Central Asia. From these steppes emerged a confederation of nomadic tribes known as the Hephthalites, or White Huns, and leading one of their most formidable clans was a man whose early life is shrouded in mystery. We don't even know his true name for certain. The chronicles of his enemies give him various titles, but we'll call him by the one that echoed in their nightmares: Akshunwar. Unlike the rulers he would later face, Akshunwar wasn't born into a palace. He was a product of the harsh steppe environment. From a young age, he would have learned to ride before he could properly walk, to fire a bow with deadly accuracy from a galloping horse, and to survive in a world where strength was the only law. His people were masters of mounted archery and lightning-fast raids. They didn't build cities, their capital was the saddle, their kingdom, the endless horizon. Akshunwar rose through the ranks not by birthright, but by raw talent and ruthless ambition. He was a brilliant strategist, understanding the weaknesses of the large, slow-moving armies of the settled empires. He saw that their strength, their organized legions and heavy infantry, was also their greatest vulnerability when faced with the fluid, hit-and-run tactics of his horsemen. His first major target was the Sasanian Persian Empire, a civilization at the zenith of its power. The Sasanian Shah, Peroz V, was a proud and arrogant ruler. When the Hephthalites began raiding his northeastern borders, he saw them as mere pests to be swatted. In 484 AD, Peroz gathered a massive army, confident he would crush these barbarians once and for all. But Akshunwar was not a typical barbarian chief. He was a cunning tactician. He lured Peroz and his massive army deep into the desert, into unfamiliar and hostile territory. The Persians, weighed down by heavy armor and long supply lines, began to suffer from heat and thirst. Akshunwar's forces, light and mobile, harassed them constantly, appearing like ghosts from the dust, raining arrows down on the exhausted soldiers, and then vanishing before the Persians could mount a proper response. The final act was a masterpiece of deception. Akshunwar ordered his men to dig a massive, camouflaged anti-cavalry trench across the path of the advancing Persian army. Then, he feigned a full-scale retreat. Eager for a decisive victory, Peroz ordered a full-speed charge. It was a fatal mistake. The elite Sasanian heavy cavalry, the pride of the empire, plunged headlong into the hidden ditch. The chaos was absolute. Horses and men were crushed and impaled. In the ensuing slaughter, the Persian army was annihilated, and Shah Peroz himself was killed. The news of this catastrophic defeat sent shockwaves across the ancient world. An entire imperial army, led by its king, had been wiped out by a nomadic chieftain. The Sasanian Empire was brought to its knees. Peroz's successor was forced to pay an exorbitant tribute to Akshunwar for years, effectively becoming a vassal to the Hephthalite warrior. The Persians, who had once looked down on the nomads, now lived in fear of them. Akshunwar had humbled a superpower, but he wasn't done. With his eastern flank secured and his treasury overflowing with Persian gold, Akshunwar turned his attention west, towards the remnants of the Roman world and the wealthy lands of India. He didn't seek to conquer and occupy these lands in the traditional sense. His goal was different, and in many ways, more terrifying. He practiced what we might call a form of proto-racketeering on a geopolitical scale. He sent his armies raiding into the northern provinces of India, shattering the once mighty Gupta Empire. The Guptas already weakened by internal strife, could not withstand the ferocity and speed of the Hephthalite horsemen. Local kings were forced to pay tribute, sending vast amounts of wealth northward into Akshunwar's coffers. He became the ultimate power broker, his influence extending from the borders of Persia to the heart of India. He wasn't just a raider, he was an empire breaker. Simultaneously, his gaze fell upon the Eastern Roman Empire, Byzantium. While he never launched a full-scale invasion against Constantinople, his presence on their eastern frontier was a constant source of anxiety. The Byzantines had heard what happened to the Persians. They knew the kind of destruction Akshunwar could unleash. Instead of risking a direct confrontation, the Byzantine emperors often chose the path of diplomacy, which was really just a polite term for paying him off. They sent lavish gifts and regular payments to keep him from turning his armies against them. Think about that for a moment. This one man, who commanded no great cities and administered no sprawling bureaucracy, held the world's 3 dominant empires in a state of fear. The Sasanians paid him tribute out of defeat. The rulers of India paid him tribute out of necessity. And the Byzantines paid him tribute to keep the peace. He was the feared shadow looming over all of them, a testament to the power of unconventional warfare and strategic genius. His tactics forced these empires to rethink everything they knew about war. They couldn't fight him on their terms, and fighting him on his terms was suicide. So why, after achieving such incredible, world-altering success, is Akshunwar a virtual unknown today? Why did this man who terrified 3 empires vanish from our collective memory? The answer lies in the nature of his power and the records he left behind, or rather, the lack thereof. The Hephthalites were a nomadic people. They had no written language of their own. They built no lasting monuments, wrote no grand histories celebrating their own achievements. Everything we know about Akshunwar and his people comes from the chronicles of their enemies, the Persians, the Romans, and the Chinese. And historians, especially those writing for kings and emperors, are not generally inclined to glorify the barbarian who defeated them. They portray him as a destructive force, a savage, not as the brilliant military mind he clearly was. Furthermore, the Hephthalite Empire, for all its military might, was built on the charisma and strength of a single leader. It was a personal empire, held together by tribute and the fear of Akshunwar himself. When he eventually passed from the scene, the confederation began to weaken. Without his unifying leadership, internal rivalries flared up. The empires he had terrorized eventually recovered. A new, powerful alliance of Persians and another rising steppe power, the Turks, saw an opportunity. They joined forces and, in a series of campaigns in the mid-6th century, crushed the Hephthalites. Their power was shattered as quickly as it had risen. The remnants of his people were scattered and absorbed into other cultures, their identity fading into the mists of time. Because they left no story of their own, their enemies got to write the final chapter. And history, as we know, has a short memory for losers, especially losers who never built anything permanent. The grand cities of Rome, Constantinople, and Ctesiphon endured. The stories of their emperors and shahs were carved in stone and written on scrolls. But the story of the steppe warrior who made them all tremble was allowed to be forgotten, a footnote in the grand narrative of civilization. Yet, the legacy of Akshunwar is a powerful reminder that history is more complex than we often think. It's not just a story of kings and cities. It's also the story of disruptive forces, of outsiders who challenge the established order and change the world in ways that are not immediately apparent. He proved that a brilliant commander with a loyal, mobile army could humble even the greatest of empires. His story is a testament to the fact that true power doesn't always come with a throne or a crown. Sometimes it comes on horseback, with a bow in hand and the wind at your back. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey to uncover one of history's forgotten giants. If you enjoy diving into the lost chapters of the past, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more stories that you won't find in the textbooks. Let me know in the comments what other historical mysteries you'd like to see us explore. See you next time.